On a
Sério, fui
quiet
parte de
street that few
ondas.
people cared to notice, two souls crossed paths in a way that would
Ensaio
change
muito.
them both forever. One was a young boy, barely 12 years old, his clothes torn, his skin dusty, his bare feet hardened from walking endless roads. His name was Malik. On his back he carried a sack that looked far too big for him. Inside were a few empty bottles and scraps of items he had collected, things that might bring him a few coins if he found the right buyer. But in his hands, he carried something far more precious than anything in that sack, half a bowl of rice. Sitting against a cold concrete wall nearby was Amara, a woman in her late 20s. Her face showed exhaustion, but her eyes still carried a quiet strength. Her belly was heavy with pregnancy, the weight of both hope and uncertainty pressing down on her. She had once had a home, a husband, and dreams for the future. But her husband's sudden death from illness had swept all of that away. Rent slipped first, then food, then her sense of safety. Now she found herself alone, unwanted by the city rushing past her, her hands resting protectively on her unborn child as she wondered how much longer she could go on. When Malik saw her, he didn't hesitate. He didn't stop to think about how hungry he was himself, or about how much effort it had taken to find that small bowl of rice. He didn't think about how little he had or how the world had already taken so much from him. He only saw her tired eyes and the way she cradled her belly. He knelt down in front of her and extended the rice. Here, he said simply, his voice small but steady. You should eat. Amara stared at him in disbelief. She hadn't expected kindness from anyone, least of all a boy who looked just as poor and hungry as she felt. Her throat tightened, and tears welled in her eyes. But, this is yours, she whispered. Malik shook his head. We can share. I can find more later. But your baby needs it now. Her lips trembled as she took the bowl from him, her hands shaking with both hunger and gratitude. She ate slowly, savoring each bite. Malik watched silently, his stomach growling, yet he felt strangely full inside. Watching her eat filled him with something he couldn't name. It was more than satisfaction, it was purpose. Amara finished the rice and looked at him, tears glistening on her cheeks. Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. Malik shrugged. Because you needed it more. And maybe one day, someone will do the same for me. That night was the beginning of something neither of them could have predicted. Malik returned the next day, and the day after that. He always tried to bring something, a piece of bread, a fruit he picked, sometimes nothing more than a bottle of water. Each time, he shared with Amara. She in turn shared her stories, her dreams, and her fears. She told him about her husband, how he used to sing to her belly at night, how they had once imagined a safe home filled with laughter. Malik listened, wide-eyed, drinking in her words like they were food for his soul. For the first time in a long time, Malik felt less alone. And for the first time since her husband's death, Amara felt less invisible. One evening, she asked him, Do you ever dream, Malik? He thought for a moment. Sometimes. I dream of having a family again. A place where I don't have to search for food every day. Somewhere someone waits for me. Amara touched her belly gently and smiled through her sadness. Then hold on to that dream. Dreams are seeds. They grow when you water them with hope. Days turned into weeks, and their bond grew stronger. Malik sacrificed often. Once, he managed to earn enough to buy himself a hot meal, something he hadn't tasted in weeks. The smell was irresistible. And his empty stomach cried out. But when he thought of Amara waiting alone on the street, carrying her unborn child, he carried the food to her instead. She insisted on sharing it with him, but he gave her most of it, brushing off his own hunger with a shy smile. Amara was deeply moved. She saw in Malik the kind of kindness that came from pure innocence, the kind of heart her husband once had. She began to feel that perhaps this boy had been sent to her as a gift in her darkest time. The day finally came when her labor began. It was late evening, and the stars had just begun to appear when pain gripped her body. She cried out, and Malik panicked. He was only 12, just a boy, and he didn't know what to do. But his heart pushed him into action. He ran through the streets, knocking on doors, pleading with strangers to help. Most turned him away, ignoring the desperate child. But finally, an older woman with kind eyes agreed to follow him. Together, they stayed with Amara through the long, painful hours. Malik held her hand, whispering encouragements, repeating the same words his mother used to tell him when he was scared, You're stronger than you think. After what felt like forever, a cry filled the air. A baby girl was born, tiny but alive, her voice strong enough to cut through the night. Amara held her daughter close, tears streaming down her face. She looked at Malik, who stood nearby exhausted, his eyes wide with awe. You saved us, she whispered. Both of us. I'll never forget this. Malik smiled shyly. She's beautiful. What will you name her? Amara looked at her baby, then at Malik. I'll call her Hope. Because that's what you gave us. From that night onward, things began to change. The older woman helped Amara find shelter at a community center for mothers. There, she finally had a safe place to rest and care for her baby. Malik visited often, bringing whatever little he could, a flower, a shiny pebble, sometimes just his company. Amara always insisted he share meals with them now. No matter how little they had, she made sure Malik ate too. Slowly, his thin frame grew stronger, his eyes brighter. For the first time in years, Malik felt like he had a family again. One day, as he held baby Hope in his arms, Amara said softly, "You're family to us now, Malik. You'll never be alone again." Word of his kindness began to spread through the neighborhood. People who had once ignored him now noticed. Some offered him small jobs, others gave him food or clothing. Malik never let the attention change him. He continued to give first, to share whatever little he had. Years passed, and Hope grew into a bright, joyful child who adored Malik. She called him uncle, though in truth, he was more like an older brother. He taught her how to play, how to be brave, and most importantly, how to be kind. She grew up knowing that her very life had been safeguarded by the generosity of a boy who had nothing. Malik never became rich, and Amara never regained the life she once dreamed of, but they discovered something greater. They built a family not by blood, but by love and sacrifice. They discovered that kindness has the power to rebuild what life tries to break. On the day Malik first offered half a bowl of rice to a stranger, he had no idea he was planting the seeds of a family, of hope, of a future that would outlive his own struggles. He only knew that someone was in need, and he gave what little he had. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the world. One small act of kindness, offered without expecting anything in return.